This week's report card finds President Trump facing new legal concerns over allegations of election meddling by Russia and payoffs to women. It also comes after his comments on trade and tariffs whipsawed Wall Street. Conservative analyst Jed Babbin highlighted the president's foreign policy challenges in giving AC, while pollster John Zogby drew a negative comparison between Trump and the late former President George H.W. Bush. Jed Babbin: see, President Trump's week was all about trade, but defense issues intruded. It began with highly positive results at the G20 summit in Buenos Aires and then fell significantly with his remarks about tariffs and the arrest of a senior Chinese executive in Canada at the request of the U.S. I am pleased to announce my nomination of four-star General Mark Milley, Chief of Staff of the United States Army, as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, replacing General Joe Dunford, who will be retiring. Donald J. Trump, at Real Donald Trump. December 8, 2018. Trump signed the U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade agreement at the G20 meeting and seemed to agree with Chinese President Xi Jinping to call off a mutual trade war. And then, only days later, Trump proclaimed that, "I am a tariff man," which caused the Dow Jones average to sink about 800 points in a day and, at one point, over 1,200 points in 2 days. President Donald Trump and Germany's Chancellor Angela Merkel shake hands during their meeting at the G20 summit, Saturday, December 1, 2018 in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Meng Wanzhou, the chief financial officer of Huawei Technologies, China's huge telecommunications company, was arrested in Canada at the request of the Justice Department on charges that Xi and Huawei are guilty of trading with Iran in violation of U.S. sanctions. Xi is being extradited to the U.S. to stand trial. China immediately demanded her release. Any prospect of avoiding a trade war with China apparently dissolved at that point. I am pleased to announce that I will be nominating the Honorable William P. Barr for the position of Attorney General of the United States. As the former ag for George H.W. Bush. Donald J. Trump, at Real Donald Trump. December 7, 2018. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo told the Russians that we would suspend the Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces (INF) treaty in 60 days if Russia didn't end its violations of the agreement. Russian President Vladimir Putin, intending on scaring the Europeans, immediately accused the U.S. of starting another arms race. Russian officials continued the fright campaign by saying that any U.S. intermediate-range missiles based in Europe would be targeted by Russian missiles. The EU reacted predictably, calling for U.S. restraint without reference to Russia's blatant violations of the treaty. President Donald Trump, right, with China's President Xi Jinping, left during their bilateral meeting at the G20 summit, Saturday, Dec. 1, 2018 in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Meanwhile, the Iranians launched a missile that reportedly has sufficient range to reach anywhere in Europe. North Korea is expanding one of its biggest missile bases and has made zero effort to denuclearize. U.S. aircraft flew over the Ukraine conflict zone to send a message to the Russians, but the message was very unclear given the fact that we aren't about to go to war with Russia over Ukraine. Vagueness in policy is good, but only up to a point. We've reached that point with respect to Ukraine. John Zogby: grade F, a terrible week in almost every way for President Trump. The stock market is wild, an economic slowdown is on the lips of lots of people, confusion prevails on policy over China, a meeting with Russia's President Putin was cancelled, the president experienced isolation and ridicule at the G20 summit. Attorney Aníbal Romero, center, joins his clients Victorina Morales, left, and Sandra Diaz, right, during an interview, Friday, December 7, 2018, in New York. Morales and Diaz, who recalled their experience working at President Donald Trump's golf resort in Bedminster, NJ, say they used false legal documents to get hired and supervisors knew it. The jobs report was a good one and his poll numbers about the same, but now the leaders of his own party are distancing themselves from him on his handling of Saudi Arabia. Maybe there's a little progress on a ceasefire in Yemen, but we have been reminded just this week how a former president mastered the art of dealing with the Middle East. The entire backdrop of the emotion over the passing of President George H.W. Bush simply presented us with the contrast of what the presidency has and should mean to the American people. Mr. Trump was not even asked to speak and was received coolly by his predecessors and almost everyone else, it seems. Trump was at the funeral, but for a lot of reasons he didn't belong there. Vice President Mike Pence speaks to reporters while standing next to Ivanka Trump, the daughter and assistant to President Donald Trump, on an airport tarmac in Mexico City, Saturday. Dec. 1, 2018. The U.S. delegation were in Mexico City Saturday morning to attend the inauguration of incoming President Andrés Manuel López Obrador. Jed Babbin is an Examiner contributor and former Deputy Undersecretary of Defense in administration of former President George H.W. Bush. Follow him on Twitter at Jed Babbin. John Zogby is the founder of the Zogby Poll and senior partner at John Zogby Strategies. His latest book is We Are Many, We Are One, Neo-Tribes and Tribal Analytics in 21st Century America. Follow him on Twitter at the John Zogby.